Solveig had been born with the rarest gift in the North, the ability to enter people's dreams and reshape them like clay. She used this power to heal nightmares, bring peace to the troubled, and guide lost souls toward wisdom. But when Jarl Eirik's men burned her home while she slept, they made a fatal error. Some gifts become far more dangerous when their wielder stops trying to help and starts planning revenge. Solveig Dreamwalker had been marked as special from birth. Born during a lunar eclipse, she entered the world with eyes that seemed to see beyond the waking realm. As she grew, it became clear that her gift was unprecedented, the ability to enter other people's dreams and guide them toward healing or resolution. Her cottage on the outskirts of Raven's Hollow became a place of pilgrimage for those suffering from nightmares, traumatic memories, or minds broken by war and loss. Warriors haunted by battlefield horrors, mothers grieving dead children, and elders tormented by lifelong regrets all sought her help. The process was gentle but profound. Solveig would sit beside sleeping patients, enter their dream realm through meditation and mystical ritual, then carefully reshape their nightmares into healing visions. She could transform scenes of violence into moments of peace, replace terror with understanding, and guide tortured souls toward acceptance of their pain. Her reputation spread across 3 kingdoms as the woman who could heal wounds that existed only in dreams but caused suffering in the waking world. She asked for no payment beyond simple food and herbs needed for her rituals, believing her gift was meant to serve others rather than enrich herself. But not everyone appreciated her work. Jarl Erik Bloodcrown ruled Raven's Hollow through fear and superstition, believing that any power he couldn't control represented a threat to his authority. Solveig's gift disturbed him because it operated beyond his understanding or influence. She could affect people's minds in ways that magic and intimidation couldn't counter. His suspicion deepened when warriors began visiting Solveig to heal trauma from battles they'd fought in his service. These men returned calmer, more thoughtful, less eager to engage in the casual violence that maintained Eirik's power. Some even began questioning orders that seemed unnecessarily cruel or showed mercy to enemies they previously would have slaughtered without hesitation. "She's changing them," Erik complained to his closest advisors. "My warriors come back from her hut acting soft, asking questions, showing weakness. That's not healing, that's corruption." When his berserker champion, Tormund the Rage-Drunk, sought Solveig's help for nightmares that prevented him from sleeping, Eirik saw this as the final proof that her influence was undermining his control. A berserker who couldn't rage properly was useless, and Tormund had been his most effective tool for intimidating enemies. Erik's decision was swift and brutal. Solveig had to die before her corruption spread further through his forces. The attack came while Solveig was deep in her own meditative sleep. Her consciousness expanded across the dream realm as she tended to 3 patients simultaneously. This state of heightened spiritual awareness made her physical body completely vulnerable. She couldn't wait quickly enough to escape when Erik's men surrounded her cottage with torches. The fire spread quickly through the wooden structure, fed by herbs and oils Solveig used in her rituals. Her patients, sleeping in beds throughout the cottage, died without ever waking. Their dreams simply faded into final darkness as smoke filled their lungs. But Solveig's gift meant her death was unlike anything her murderers expected. As flames consumed her body, her consciousness didn't simply extinguish. It scattered across the dream realm, touching every sleeping mind she had ever helped, carrying with it the agony of betrayal and the burning rage of injustice. Her final living thought was a promise that echoed through the collective unconscious of everyone who had known her. Those who destroyed healing would learn what it meant to have their own peace destroyed forever. Death didn't end Solveig's power, it transformed it. Freed from physical limitations, Her consciousness could now access any sleeping mind without the careful rituals and patient preparation that had constrained her while living. More importantly, the trauma of her murder had twisted her gift from healing tool into weapon of psychological warfare. Where she had once reshaped nightmares into peaceful dreams, she now crafted horrors specifically designed to destroy sanity. Her intimate knowledge of how human minds processed fear and guilt allowed her to create dream experiences that felt more real than reality, more vivid than any waking memory. The first target was Tormund, whose quest for peaceful sleep had triggered Eirik's paranoia. But instead of the healing dreams Solveig might once have given him, Tormund found himself trapped in an endless loop where he experienced burning alive from Solveig's perspective, feeling every moment of agony while understanding that his desire for peace had caused her death. Night after night, Tormund lived through the fire, unable to wake until the dream reached its natural conclusion. Each experience left him more broken, more terrified of sleep, more consumed by guilt that ate away at his berserker strength like acid. Eirik's other warriors began experiencing their own personalized nightmares, each one tailored to their specific fears and guilty memories. The men who had set the fire found themselves burning eternally. Those who had watched and laughed discovered dreams where their own families died in flames while they stood helpless. But the psychological torture went deeper than simple revenge. Solveig forced each victim to experience her healing gift from the perspective of those they had hurt. Warriors who had terrorized villages lived through their victims' trauma. Men who had shown no mercy experienced the desperation of those who had begged for their lives. The cumulative effect was devastating. Eirik's forces began suffering from chronic exhaustion as they developed elaborate rituals to avoid sleep. Some stayed awake for days until exhaustion forced unconsciousness, only to be dragged into dream realms where time moved differently and single nights could contain weeks of psychological torture. As his warriors collapsed from sleep deprivation or went mad from nightmare-induced trauma, Eirik realized he faced an enemy that conventional force couldn't defeat. How do you fight someone who attacks through dreams? How do you defend against an opponent who grows stronger when you close your eyes? His attempts to find other dreamworkers who might counter Solveig's power failed. Her reputation had been unique because her gift was genuinely rare. The few practitioners of dream magic he located were hedge witches with minor abilities, unable to even perceive the sophisticated nightmare architecture that Solveig was constructing. More terrifyingly, the nightmares began affecting Eirik himself. Dreams where Solveig stood in his bedchamber, her burned flesh slowly healing as she spoke in a voice like crackling fire. You destroyed healing because you feared peace. Now experience war that never ends, battle that brings no victory, rage that consumes everything you think you're protecting. Solveig's supernatural revenge revealed truths that her victims had spent years avoiding. In their dreams, she forced them to confront the full consequences of their violence, the unnecessary suffering they had caused, and the fear that motivated their cruelty. Eirik discovered that his paranoia about Solveig's influence had been rooted in recognition that she offered something he couldn't provide: genuine peace rather than exhausted submission. His warriors hadn't been corrupted by her healing. They had been reminded of what it felt like to sleep without guilt. The nightmares showed him every person who had died because of his orders, every family destroyed by his raids, every moment when he could have chosen mercy but selected violence instead. But unlike the healing dreams Solveig had once crafted, these visions offered no resolution, no path toward forgiveness, only endless repetition of his failures. The breaking point came when Eirik's son, barely 16 years old, was found dead in his bed with the expression of absolute terror frozen on his face. The boy had died from fear itself, his heart stopping during a nightmare so intense that his body couldn't survive the psychological trauma. Investigating his son's death, Eric discovered that the nightmare had shown the boy every atrocity committed in his family's name, every person who would die because of the violent legacy he was expected to inherit. Solveig had given the child perfect understanding of what it meant to be Eric's heir, and the knowledge had literally scared him to death. Standing over his son's corpse, Eric finally understood what Solveig was teaching him. Peace wasn't weakness. It was the absence of the fear that had consumed his child. Healing wasn't corruption. It was the alternative to the violence that had destroyed everything he claimed to protect. That night, Eric experienced his final nightmare, but instead of the endless punishment he expected, he found himself in a peaceful meadow where Solveig appeared as she had been in life, calm, wise, and radiating the gentle strength that had made her a healer. "Your son is safe now," she told him, her voice carrying the warmth that had comforted so many troubled souls. "He died before your legacy could corrupt him completely. That may be the only mercy he ever would have received." "End this," Eric begged, his dream self falling to his knees. "I understand what I destroyed. I accept whatever punishment you think I deserve. But end the nightmares." Solveig's response was both forgiveness and final judgment. The nightmares end when you choose to heal instead of harm, to build instead of burn, to serve peace instead of feeding fear. Your punishment isn't eternal suffering. It's the opportunity to become better than what you've been. Eric woke from that final dream fundamentally changed. The man who had ruled through terror spent his remaining years trying to undo the damage his violence had caused. He established healing centers, protected those his warriors had once persecuted, and taught his remaining followers that strength meant protecting rather than destroying. But the most important change was in how people understood the relationship between power and responsibility. Solveig's supernatural revenge had demonstrated that gifts meant to heal others would become weapons when those healers were destroyed out of fear or ignorance. Her cottage was rebuilt as a shrine where people came to honor those who used their abilities to serve others rather than themselves. The story of the Dreamweaver's nightmare became a warning told to every generation. Those who destroy healers should expect to have their own peace destroyed in return. Some teachers continue their lessons even after death, and some gifts are too important to die with their wielders. Solveig had shown that the choice between healing and harming echoed through realms beyond the waking world, and that choosing violence against healers carried consequences that could last beyond any single lifetime. If this tale of ultimate payback moved you, hit that like button and let us know in the comments which part shocked you the most. Subscribe to Time for Payback for more legendary stories where betrayal meets justice, and don't forget to ring that notification bell, because every betrayal has its reckoning, and every story holds the power to change everything. What revenge story should we tell next? Drop your suggestions below. Until next time, remember, karma never forgets.